I ask you a question?
The Bolton Effect.
Welcome to the first podcast of the Bolton Effect.
Welcome, Louis.
We made it.
We did. We certainly did. Thank you for making it happen.
I can't believe that we actually got here.
Yeah, but I think we knew we would.
Yeah, I think we.
I think there's one. I don't think. I know there's one thing about us is that when we put our minds to something, we generally get it done.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the journey to this point of actually sitting
in our own podcast studio,
which, funnily enough, happened rather quickly, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to set something up at home, and I know, when you watch a lot of YouTube videos and people out there and things like that, they say that sometimes you overthink things, and there's never been a dedicated space for us to be able to do something.
Yeah.
So it's always been like, we need to record something.
Yeah, but then you think about, where are we going to do it? And then you need a studio. And as it happened, I was just clearing out the garage, and you just stood there, and all the space was available. And we were like, yep, that's it. And in one weekend, we got it done.
We cleared out, we bought the curtains, got the carpet, hung the rails, and then, used, the equipment that I've got that we can set up. So it's actually beautiful. So thank you very much for helping me set this up, because I'm quite excited about the potential of what this can do. So I have to ask, why are we starting a podcast? I mean, and I remember you and I talking about this a long time ago, because we both listen to podcasts and we understand the value of them. Yeah.
But you see, that's the thing, is my question has always been, what value do you add? And you said it so succinctly yesterday. What you said to me was, even if you only have a message for one person, then that's more than enough. Yeah. And that's something that we've always believed as a couple in all the work that we've done. If we could just make a difference, when we think about the soccer projects that we did with General Motors, going into some pretty stricken communities.
We've had a journey, eh?
Yeah, but we were always very driven about the fact that we could make a difference to somebody. Yeah, and those aren't our words. I mean, I hear Brene Brown saying that, and Tony Robbins. And if you could just make a difference to one person.
And I do believe in the power of podcasting for a number of reasons, and they might be selfish.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I appreciate about them is the long-form discussion of them.
Yeah.
Because the conveyor belt of social media with the scrolling, it's bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot of things that you read, that you see, is taken out of context.
I was just going to say that, 100%, because you don't understand the conversation before or after. So it's a little snippet that you'd potentially take on, and that's pretty misguided.
And you form your whole world around that, when it's actually not the case. So my push for this podcast, The Bolton Effect, and we'll talk about the name, how we got to the name, is to go deeper just below the surface.
Yeah.
And explore different topics and different subject matters. And there's a plethora of things that we can discuss. Yeah. It's very difficult to kind of niche down what we want to do. But I feel that the longer form conversation between you, my partner, my wife, someone who I've known for the last 25 years, we have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I think there is, heaven forbid, some knowledge dissemination, because that information dissemination is important.
Yeah, and I think the true message is in the storytelling, and that's the personal experience that somebody brings to something.
So just a brief history of tell us a little bit about yourself, and kind of just short, and then I've got the second question to that, which I'll ask you about the three different points. Just a brief history of how did you get to New Zealand? Just who's Bridgette?
Yeah, wow. So there's two questions there. Who am I, and how did I get to New Zealand? So there was the brief history of me. So I am the child of a single parent. My mother is definitely this amazing entity that has wrapped me in care and knowledge, and she's taught me a lot about life. She's always been on her own journey, and sometimes I feel like I haven't done enough to journey like she does, but that's been her journey, and she's needed to find the wisdom for herself. My father has never really been in the picture. That's always been a particularly difficult conversation and a difficult relationship. But I'm also the child of a Dutch family. So we were Dutch in South Africa, and there was a lot of community around that, which has always been a very heartwarming thing for me. And I don't think I realized that until much later. Every Wednesday my grandmother would go, and there was a firm circle of them, and they would they would go to somebody's kitchen and, God forbid, it would be child abuse now, but they all smoked and they would all sit around the kitchen table having coffee and nattering, and this room would just fill up with cigarette smoke.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It'd be outlawed today.
Totally. But and they always had something traditional baked, and I would often sit in the lounge and play with my dolls and just overhear the Dutch conversation. And so that's a really fond memory for me. So that sort of culture has definitely shaped me. I definitely identify with being Dutch, although I've lived in South Africa for a lot of my life. High school was an interesting space, a bit rebellious. There were some things I wish I hadn't done.
No, you don't say.
Yeah, and now that I look at a 13-year-old, our daughter, who will
be known as Miss 13.
Miss 13. I look at her and I think, I hope she doesn't do some of the things that I did. But she's also on her own journey.
Correct.
And so I remember my mom and I having lots of talks about what I wanted to be when I finally left school. And so the easiest path really was marketing, because you can be all and do all. And
this is in South Africa now.
Yeah, and you can fit in anywhere really. So I studied, and then you get, and then I spent a year in the Arabian Seas looking for dugongs and whales, and that was what I really wanted to do.
Okay. We'll definitely have to talk more about that at a later stage.
Literally sitting on the top of the boat with binocs for hours at a time, looking for whales, looking for dolphins, and we got funding to tag a dugong. Anyway, yeah, I mean that was, and that actually was really all I wanted to do. But then, having got back to South Africa with a little bit of student debt, I was then incorporated into IBM, which is where my mom worked.
What age would that have been about?
That was probably early 20s, having come back from the Middle East.
So you had the sort of upbringing and the nurturing as a child, and then through teenagehood, but then you definitely stepped out of your comfort zone and explored the world like everyone else, and then came back.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
I did my 2 years traveling Europe like you do. Saw some amazing countries, Ireland and Spain and Israel and Jordan and Egypt and God knows where else. Can't even remember, because it was 100 years ago, obviously. And then, I guess, as I was saying, I got back into, I got into corporate. And that was really the path. Although there's 90% of me that really didn't want to be there. 90% of me wanted to be out there trailing dolphins or looking, for something in nature. So that's always been a bit of a split in my personality. And then you kind of fall into a trap of earning your income, and working through marketing and in agencies. And I mean, I remember you and me at coffee shops in Hyde Park, for example, tearing our hair out. You were at CNBC. I was at an agency, and just thinking like, geez, is this our life, man?
Yeah. There's a whole story to actually how we met and how we. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But the corporate side of things was a necessary evil for both you and me, because we were in a system where you have to earn money. Now that's a whole other discussion.
We bought into that system.
But we bought into that system.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we had just come back from a sabbatical in the bush.
Yes, indeed. So that was a couple of years
prior.
So we were in the Eastern Cape, and we did that for the best part of, I think, 18 months or 2 years, I can't remember. And then we went up to Botswana.
You worked in the Okavango Delta.
Yeah. And I mean, we really loved that,
Yeah. And that's where we really got to know each other.
Yes. I mean, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, they say, like when you work in the bush with someone, in close quarters like that, for every 7 years out in the real world is a year in the
yes, bush. One year in the bush together equates for 7 years out in the real world. Because you're working together, you're living together, you're eating together, you're arguing, you're
in close proximity.
Exactly.
On an island that's only 200 meters by 300 meters, so you have to.
Well, when the water came in, that's exactly what it was like.
But that was a wonderful experience, and then obviously coming back to corporate, and then you're answering the question with the other question that I asked, was like the 3 pivotal moments in your life that have got you here. You've mentioned the beginning. Take us through what those 3 pivotal moments are, because once you got into the corporate life and we got married, I hope that's one of the pivotal moments.
Oh.
But from there, like then what happened then? And then you landed up in New Zealand. We landed up in New Zealand.
So I think if I answer that question, a pivotal moment in my life was definitely being a product of an absent dad. And I there's no need to get into it because there's been a lifetime of forgiveness, and I was clearly supposed to be on that journey with him.
Right.
But being the product of that abusive behavior definitely shapes you.
Sure.
Definitely shapes you. So, and there are lots of books written about how you then need to find yourself, and so you weren't loved by. So you were loved by one parent and the other parent was abusive, and you've got to kind of balance that.
Especially growing up.
Well, as a girl, that kind of attention was, was, and only as I've got older have I realized, well, it was very destructive.
Oh.
And so I guess in hindsight, I understand some of my behavior.
Okay.
And what's telling, and this, I used to contemplate this quite a lot. So he had 3 daughters and we all suffered at his hand in some way. And he died of 3 tumors in his brain. So
it's uncanny, isn't it?
It's ironic. So that's definitely a pivotal experience in my life because it shaped who I was to understand, who I came to understand as Bridgette, who I came to understand as a woman.
Sure.
And that's taken some digging, that self-acceptance, that self-love. Another pivotal moment was definitely marrying you because we sort of found in each other a real kindred spirit.
100%.
Yeah, you were very, as I said to you earlier on, you were very empathetic to the fact that I didn't want to lead a normal life. And
no, you certainly didn't.
And that is said without judgment. I didn't want to,
You didn't want to go down the normal route of, high school, university, marriage, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, blah, blah, blah,
kids,
blah.
Yeah. You go to your day job, I go to my day job. We retire when we're 65 and we have a house in wherever it is.
Well, for me, added to that is you...
Sorry, I need to add on there that I didn't want it to sound judgmental, but I just wanted different kinds of adventure in my life.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to conquer some frontiers. I don't think I've ever done that, but...
I think you've conquered some major frontiers.
Yeah,
with
maybe.
Miss 13 and immigrating.
Oh, yeah.
That's a massive frontier.
Yeah, it is indeed.
If you step outside yourself and you look at that,
Well, lots of people have kids all around the world.
Yeah, and lots of people immigrate. But
exactly.
Everyone's journey is unique.
Yeah, indeed.
And the journey for me was, I was going down that more formative kind of traditional path.
When we met. Indeed.
Yeah. And suddenly you came into my life after me coming back from also my 2-year stint overseas in London as a rickshaw rider.
Yes.
And you challenged everything that I spoke about. You challenged everything. But you were also empathetic enough to listen to my answers of why.
Yeah.
And ask the questions which I'd never actually been asked or challenged with.
No, but it was in you. We really connected.
We definitely did. And that's a story for another time. But it was amazing. And then immigrating to New Zealand. I didn't want to immigrate. That's again,
No, you were
I was a South African.
That's right.
I was happy to be
100%. Yeah.
In South Africa, living my life, etc., etc. And then things happened, and that is a podcast for another time because it's a massive story in itself. So, okay, so the formative years, pivotal, marrying me, pivotal.
Definitely marrying you.
Third one?
And that has to be having a daughter. Yeah. You question everything about yourself.
Sure, life changes in an instant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
I wouldn't change it for the world either. And
it's easy to say that now, though.
No, but
because you wouldn't know any differently if we didn't have
No, exactly. No, and I wouldn't change anything. But I hear we have a very good mutual friend in Cassie, which is she's Misty Meadows, and she told us the principal of Misty Meadows, and which is where Kenzie started her education, the farm school,
natural in the wild.
Absolutely, and I always remember Cassie saying, that, and I'm really rephrasing. I haven't had a conversation with her in so many years, but it's about not looking for your own validation in your child. Don't put any of your expectations on them. And I find myself doing it quite often.
It's hard, eh?
Like, for example, I wish that Kenzie read. She hates reading, but that's okay. If she doesn't like to read, so be it.
Having your heart walk outside your body is one of the toughest, most wonderful journeys I've been on as a father.
Yeah.
But yes, you and I come from a generation with Gen X. Don't shoot us down for that. But we are blessed in a way because we're the last analog generation. We've got we had 1 foot in pre-internet.
Yes, that's right.
Pre-digital, pre-cell phone.
Pre-cell phone. I remember the first cell phone.
All of that. And then we've gone through all these changes where our own belief systems have been challenged on a daily basis. And we've had to adapt to those different scenarios and those different changes. Having a kid will test you even more. Kid 2.0. I mean, it's in their DNA. Okay, cool. So I thank you for the sharing because I think I do know this about you, but
you've never asked that of me in that way. So I'd be very curious to return the question. What are 3 pivotal moments for you in your life?
I mean, it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. But if I think of the 3 most pivotal moments, I have to say, falling in love and marrying you was extremely pivotal in my life because it was a commitment from myself to another human being that I wanted to be with for the rest of my life. Someone that I wanted to declare my love for, not because of any other reason, that you meant the world to me. And I remember when we had this discussion, you never wanted to get married.
No,
it was not even on the cards. No. Marriage, kids, just was not something, and based on what you've just told us, I get that. But the journey that we've been on, and when we got to that point of going, hey, I actually just want to let everyone know that you're pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And we celebrate it in that way. So that was extremely pivotal. The second one, I have to agree with you, for me was having Miss 13. I mean, she is...
How do you sum her up?
I have no words. No. I mean, she's amazing. And we're doing the best that we can with what we've got. Immigration would be the last one, which has tested me on so many levels. And the biggest thing for me is that when we decided to move, and there were various reasons for that, none other than we wanted to see what a better life could be, what it could look like. And I remember the decision, how I came to that decision was, you never forced me, you never lay down the law or anything like that. It was a discussion. It's always been a discussion. But when it clicked, we were on a farm in the Midlands, in the Dargle Valley, and I remember having a braai barbecue, and I had a glass of wine, and you turned around to me and said, what do you think about immigration? What do you think about the possibility of leaving? And there were a few things that had happened prior to that question. And I sat down and I looked over the valley, over the grass. The cows were in the field, and we looked over the horizon in the distance. And I sat down. The sun was setting. Miss 13, she wasn't Miss 13 then, was playing. And I suddenly thought, yeah, I'm open to the idea. And then things happen pretty quickly.
But don't you think it's sometimes the way somebody phrases a question? So what they do is it's almost like they bypass your conscious cognitive thinking, and they loop into something that either raises an emotion but it definitely bypasses something, a certain way that somebody asks something. And I remember that the way a doctor asked me a particular question about how I saw my future is how I finally decided that I actually wanted to be a mom. And he bypassed all of my prejudices and all of my thinking, and he just asked it in a way that unlocked something. And I think that was part of that discussion that you and I had. You just let your mind go in a certain direction and see something as possible, which is there for everybody. unlocking
I really get what you're saying, because there wasn't any, you weren't waiting for a specific answer, and I didn't have to answer you in any way, and neither did you. So you're right, it almost was in a state of unconscious competence.
Yes, and if you think about any challenges that you're facing with a partner, whether it's a husband or a child or whatever, it's to fall back into discussion rather than be an authoritative, I know better, or I want you to do things my way.
Correct.
It's just about opening the discussion and going past the prejudice.
And creating that space for that to come
in. For that thought to pop up and start to blossom.
Because after I made that decision, I was on board.
100%.
But I was on board.
Everything was flowed.
Not for you.
Yeah.
I was on board for me.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I remember saying was that, Bridge, I will do this, but under one condition. There's plan A.
Yes, so we were never turning back.
It wasn't
and
B,
we lived
C, or
it.
D.
No, we
it
lived
wasn't
it.
a case of like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
If we did this, that was 6.5 years ago.
Indeed.
And that has been a massive journey, and everybody's immigration story is different. And it was challenging and testing, but we're here, we've made it. And I think that has led us to where we are today, where we are working together.
Yeah.
You know, we have been on our own sort of journeys because we've had to survive here in New Zealand for various reasons. And, you know, towards the end of the last year, things happened and we were both made redundant.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next question, because the redundancy kicked the dust up in me, and it was the best thing that I didn't know I need happen to me, because I suddenly had to ask myself, what could I do if I knew that I couldn't fail? And I had to ask these questions deep in myself, because I didn't want to go and look for another job. And I've always wanted to work with you. We worked back together in South Africa. And this led us to suddenly, once you were made redundant, you were at a stage as well where you were, South African term, gatvol, and didn't want to go out and look for another job. And here we are together, working together. So I think it's amazing.
I think Juno's just stolen all the cat food.
Really?
Thanks for burping on
Thanks, Juno. She's our other child. Juno, our golden retriever, has just walked into the studio, and she's part of the family. Bridge, what could you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? I don't think we're doing that now.
Correct.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
Yeah. We're doing that now. And there's a few things that make this so possible. Number one, we've sacrificed a lot so that we can save. We really have. We haven't gone on...
There's a lesson in there, and there's a whole podcast just in that.
Exactly. We haven't gone on holidays. We haven't, bought furniture. I'm driving a car that is the same as I used to drive when I was a student. But what that gave us, unwittingly, without us even knowing, it's given us a safety net.
Freedom.
And it's given us freedom, exactly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we've been visualizing this pretty hard. We've done a lot of work. We're constantly checking in with ourselves and making sure that the energy that we're putting out is the right kind of energy. So
there's a lot of internal work.
100%. There isn't any sadness or desperation or fear or victimness. There's just me saying, this is me, I'm in my space, I believe the best can happen, I know I deserve the best, this is really my chance to shine. I want to make you and Kenzie proud, I want to make me proud, I really want to get stuck into something that's amazing, and I really want to make a difference. And I know now that I'm not going to fail.
You're not going to fail?
Because whatever it is, I will do it to the very best of my ability.
As will I.
So 100%. So the one thing that we have on our side is the financial net. The second thing is we're both backed by an incredibly stoic belief that we will succeed. And that is, regardless of whether you believe in God or whether you believe that there's a universal power, it is 100%. Making itself present every day in the smallest ways.
Yep.
And we had a very clear vision for what we wanted to do.
Correct. And I love that, because we backed ourselves. And I think that's been the biggest thing, is literally backing ourselves and going, we're going to do this. What if your...
Wait, what would you do if you couldn't fail?
Yeah. Look, I have to echo what you say. I've procrastinated a lot, and complexity of overthinking stops me from executing.
I standing outside, I often see that in you.
So what I've wanted to do is take massive action. What we're creating here, for me, is taking massive action.
Yeah.
I don't know where this is going to go.
No.
I don't really care. The fact that I can sit opposite you, my wife, and have this conversation fills my cup so much.
100%.
Like you cannot believe.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that and the possibility of what is possible here. The second thing is I have always wanted to work with you alongside you. And we did that in South Africa, but the opportunity hasn't arisen. It wasn't possible here in New Zealand until now.
Yeah, because we were working for visas and permanent residency and all of that.
We had to work permanently for other people.
And also we needed to accumulate that safety net.
Which is now in effect.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is, but you've got to recognize it and take action. So I feel like this is part of that action.
Yeah, very much
and long may it last.
Yeah.
Your hopes and thoughts or dreams or for the podcast or for what we actually want to do?
It's such a strong feeling that I have that it's quite hard actually to verbalize it. But I want more than anything just to see you fly. I just want to see you get to a point where you are so fulfilling your dreams, your hopes and your desires as far as being behind the camera, being in front of the camera, whatever it is. You know, you've always said, Louis, we're going to have to do this. And I want you to get to the point where you stand up and you go, we're doing this. I'm doing this. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
We're doing it. Bridge, I think we can sort of wrap it up there for now because there's so much that we can talk about. We could go on for hours.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts about this podcast, about any last thoughts?
I'm just really excited, Louis, and I think that I go back to something I said at the beginning. I don't mind if we're only talking to one person. I don't mind if these conversations are just for you and I going on the record. I have more hope for the podcast in that I would love to interview people. I would love to share journeys.
Absolutely.
Parenting journeys, tips for entrepreneurs, menopause.
Let's bring it on. Let's do it. Let's do it. So if people want to, and let's find those people and
100%.
get them on board.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because that's my goal is to actually disseminate information.
Yeah.
And do these long form discussions where we can go deeper and we can actually understand people's stories because your story is unique and it's only one of you.
Yeah, so, exactly.
The Bolton effect is in effect.
Yeah. And that's what we've always wanted to do. We've wanted to have a positive effect on something. For me, it's always been the environment and I guess and animals, and for you, I guess it's always been people. And so here we are.
Let's leave it there.
Nice job.
Can I ask you a question?
The Bolton